Okay. On the morning of May 31st, 2008, my mother was a healthy, happy 84-year-old returning to Florida after a nice visit with family in New Jersey. 3 hours later, she was lying on a gurney in the hallway of a busy inner-city hospital, dazed, confused, in a great deal of pain, and all alone. Okay. How did my wonderful mother go from point A to point B in such a short period of time? It is due to the negligence of a major northeastern airport, a trusted airline, and a greedy, uncaring skycap. As always, I had prearranged for the airline to take my mother to her plane in a wheelchair. She could walk just fine, but it was a big airport, and I wanted to make sure she didn't get lost and made it to her plane on time. My cousin dropped her off at the departure area where she made sure my mom had a wheelchair and entrusted her to the care of a skycap. My cousin looked in the skycap in the eye and said, "Do you promise to take my aunt directly to her plane in the wheelchair?" And the skycap replied, "Oh yes, ma'am." The skycap also made a point of saying that tipping was appreciated. Here you go, Mom. Let's put your coffee. As soon as they walked into the terminal, the skycap asked my mom if she had money to pay the tip. My mother replied, "Of course." Shortly thereafter, the skycap received a phone call. After the call, she informed my mother that she was needed elsewhere and said she was going to put my mom onto the motorized tram that moved people through the terminal. My mom is shy and retiring and didn't tell her, "No, you promised you would take me directly to the plane." So the skycap made sure she got her tip, stuck my mom on the tram, and took off. Obviously, the skycap figured she could earn more tip money if she only did half her job, pawned the wheelchair rider off on someone else, and then returned for her next victim. My mom was not riding the tram for more than a couple of minutes when it came to a screeching halt, throwing her against the seat in front of her, and then ejecting her from the tram onto her back on the terminal floor. She remembers her head slamming into the cement floor, and then she was surrounded by a crowd of people. There were some who said they witnessed the accident, but she was dazed and in no condition to ask for their contact information. An airport representative took a report of the accident, an ambulance was called, and my mom was taken to a local hospital where she waited in the hall on a gurney for what seemed like hours before she was able to see a doctor. Come on. Head up. It's all right. X-rays and CT scans were taken, and miraculously nothing was broken, so they released my mother approximately 7 hours after she was thrown from the tram. After the accident, I was contacted by an airline representative who assured me that a full report had been taken and that it would be made available to us. At my insistence, an airline representative met my mother at the hospital, accompanied her to a local hotel, and stayed with her until she was put on a plane back to Florida the next morning. By the time my mom arrived back in Florida, she was suffering from intensifying neck pain and had scabs on both her knees from the force of the impact into the tram seat in front of her. Though we made numerous phone calls attempting to get a copy of the accident report, nobody at the airport ever responded to our requests. Over the next weeks and months, her neck pain continued and her head started drooping lower and lower onto her chest. We took my mother to an orthopedic specialist who determined that the trauma to her neck muscles was so severe it had caused my mom to carry her head in an abnormal position to alleviate the pain. Over a period of several months, this caused the muscles in the back of her neck to overdevelop to the point that she could no longer lift her head into its normal upright position because of the enlarged muscle mass behind her neck. She was referred to a neurologist and physical therapy was prescribed. The neurologist suggested that Botox injections into the muscles behind her neck might weaken them enough to enable her to lift her head higher. So she has been enduring those painful injections, along with physical therapy, 2 or 3 times per week. She must also do neck strengthening and balancing exercises twice weekly, hang an over-the-door cervical traction twice daily, wear a soft collar for eating and sleeping, and an uncomfortable rigid metal collar for as long as she can endure it during her waking hours. Because she can't hold her head up, the full weight of her chin and jawbones rests on the metal collar, which is quite painful. My mother wears dentures, and she must take out her lower denture when wearing the hard collar because it also causes painful pressure. The net result of this absolutely unnecessary and preventable accident caused by the negligence on the part of the airline and airport is the severe deterioration of my mother's quality of life. Okay, Mom, we're going to put your traction on. Get your chin in here. Is that good? Something my mom has to do twice daily for 15 minutes each time with a 10-pound weight hanging. Okay, I think we have it this time. All right, hold it right there. Got it? Mm-hmm. Ready? Straighten your head up. Okay.
It hurts my jawbones.
Okay. Just stay like that, okay? 15 minutes.
My neck. To do this.
My mom is self-conscious and uncomfortable about going out in public with her hard collar on. She is losing weight because she can't hold her head up high enough to take food properly off a fork or spoon, and she walks off balance because of her frontward-leaning posture. Though she does walking exercises to improve her balance, she has been falling more and more frequently. She spends several days per week at either the doctor or the physical therapist, and my sister and I have lost significant time from our businesses taking my mom to her frequent appointments. Okay. Had the skycap done her duty and kept her word when she looked my cousin directly in the eye and promised to personally take my mother all the way to her plane in the wheelchair, this accident would not have taken place. Had the airline complied with its promise that my mother would be taken directly to her plane in the prearranged wheelchair, this accident would not have taken place. Had the airport properly screened its skycaps to ensure that they were responsible, considerate members of the airport team, instead of money-hungry, non-caring individuals only interested in gaining tips, this accident would not have taken place. The bottom line is this. My mother has suffered considerable pain and irreparable damage to her body, which strongly affects her physical and mental well-being, resulting in loss of quality of life and, quite possibly, a reduced lifespan. The responsible parties need to do the right thing by stepping up to the table and making reparations for their negligence now, not when my mother is totally incapacitated or has passed away.
Go back that way. Say something. This is where I'm going.
This is my mom doing her walking exercises where she's trying to balance to keep herself from falling. As you can see, it's not easy. Easy, Mom.